Well, there's my problem. Well, once again, we're at the auto parts store, and we're going to be putting shocks and brakes on this thing. Well, they didn't have the parts we needed, so we had to order them. They'll be here on Tuesday. So, I guess I will head home with what I got, start prepping this thing, and we'll get to work with what we got. So it's a couple days later, and parts should be in now. I got to head back over to Hayesville to go pick them up. Let's go see if they're in, and I'll show you what I got. Well, we're back from the auto parts store. The weather's warmed up a little, and I got the shocks and the brakes, so let me show you what I got. Okay, so I got the brakes. This truck here has dual piston brakes on the front, all the way around on the front. It's got drums on the back, as you know. I got 4 shocks for the they're both different for the front and back, and I spent the money and bought a steering stabilizer. I got a pretty good deal on the shocks. It was worth waiting for. Everybody wanted to order me all this fancy schmancy stuff. It's a stock suspension. I'm not gonna sit there and screw around with, you know, Rancho and KYB and all those other high dollar stuff. I'm not going to do anything special with the truck. So I bought the Monroes, and I give $30 a piece for them. I got a good deal on the brake pads. I forgot what I paid for them, but the steering stabilizer was about 50 bucks. It was like 40, 45, $46 somewhere in there. So altogether, it wasn't too bad, you know. I decided to wait because I found some shocks in town. They had the 2 rear ones, but they wanted like 60 bucks a piece for them. And for what I paid for all 4 of the shocks to buy for the back too, and they were the same shocks basically. So I said, you know what? I'll wait a couple days. I'll just order them and have them brought in. And sure enough, I did, and I saved a bit of money. So let's go get them put on. I've been soaking the bolts down with penetrating oil on the front and back, and the bleed screws and all that, so everything should come out all right. Like I said, the shocks are shot front and back, so we'll get those changed out, and we'll just have to go from there. So let me get off the ground, and I'll jack this thing up, and we'll get the tires off and go from there. Well, we've got the wheel off. I still got to put the jack stand under it, but the pads are actually got quite a bit of meat still left on them from what I can see. But I got new ones, so I'll go ahead and replace them anyways. And we'll get the new shock put on. I know some people are wondering, they've seen me use air tools and all those other things, and how come I'm not using them? And truthfully, the older I get, the less I just like the noise. So let's go ahead and replace this shock first, and then we'll do the brakes. Interesting fun fact, this thing was double nutted, so it wouldn't come loose. I wish they would have gone ahead and double nutted the bottom. Well, we got it off. That was a task, but everything seems to be working good, so let's get the new shock on and see what happens. Well, so far everything looks pretty good. The brake pad's still got a lot of meat on it, but it looks like it's been glazed. It's pretty shiny. Like I said, we're going to go ahead and replace it. It's pretty contaminated. It's pretty contaminated, so we'll go ahead and replace it. The new shock went right in just beautifully. It was a little difficult getting the old one out, but the calipers look really good, so I don't think there'll be any need to rebuild those. So we'll just go ahead and put the new pads on and get them situated, and it's got this I think this is anti-chatter stuff, but we'll get all that done up and then we'll move to the next side. Okay, now that we're getting ready to put the brake pads on now, what we're going to do is we're going to use this C-clamp to compress this back in so we can put the new pads in and get it on the over the disc without any real trouble, because the new pads are a lot thicker than the old ones. So let's do that. So we got the new brake pad next to the old ones, and they were about half gone by comparison, but they new ones should do a whole lot better. So they're a little more gone than I thought, but the old ones are just really contaminated, so the new ones ought to be just great. So everything's done here. Got the brakes all put back together, the retaining keys, the bolts, the shock, everything's good to go. So let's put the tire on, drop it, and go do the other side now. Here on the other side, I'm having a little trouble getting that top bolt off, so we're gonna crank out the grinder and hit it with that. I'm get the cutting wheel and cut that off, and hopefully I don't cut up my hands. So wish me luck. Well, we ended up having to cut the top of the shock off to get it out, but it's out. So while we're in here, we're gonna do the stabilizer shock because everything's out, so that'll make it easier. So let's get this cleaned up and we'll get the air tools out and we'll chisel that out. So I got the stabilizer shock out. It was pretty well shot, so we'll put the new one in now. The steering stabilizer went in really quick, and it was surprising that it wasn't bind up or nothing, so she just went in really quick. And the other shock here, once I got the old one cut off, she zipped right in. So we got now is left to do the brakes, and we're done on the front. Well, we're done for the night. I was hoping to be a little further than this, but I did have some other errands I had to do during the day because, well, real life is real life, and this is kind of just a hobby at this point. So let me show you what happened so far and what I still need to finish up in the morning. That's the stabilizer shock, the two front shocks, and the brakes. They were all done. That's all done up. And remember, when you're pushing in the pistons on the brakes, it's going to come out the top, because if you've been keeping it full, yeah, it's gonna be over full because you have wider brakes on now. So that's just something to be mindful. But don't freak out when it starts dripping. Just clean it up and you'll be good to go. All we have left to do is just the brakes on the back, or the shocks on the back here. Those should be pretty easy, I hope. So we'll get those done up and probably check the diff to make sure it's still got it full of oil, and we'll be good to go. So that's it for tonight. I guess we'll catch you in the morning. So it's the next day. We're gonna fire up the air compressor, irritate a neighbor or two, and see if we can't get these off in a reasonable amount of time, these back shocks. So let's get to it and see what we're dealing with. Part of the problem that I'm having with these shocks is this. The shocks are so worn out, and all they're doing is just spinning around. So I've been having a really hard time getting the bolts to come loose because they're just not firm. Just the whole unit spins. So we'll have to deal with that on this one too, and hopefully I don't have to grind it out like I did the last one. So let's get to it. Well, we got the one on finally. That was I had to cut that one off. So let's get this one, and well, emergency brake cable shot. Well, that's wonderful. So deal with that another time. So let's get this one off. So this is the result of poor maintenance.
I had to cut 3 of the 4 shocks off. The brakes are shot, and I just got a whole bunch of miscellaneous stuff here. But that's alright, we got it fixed. But these shocks have been shot for a long time, so this is why you change these things out every couple of years. Don't let them get like this. And, you know, if you have to take it to a shop to get it done, instead of a 5 minutes job, they're going to charge you an hourly rate. So make sure you take care of your maintenance.
Now we're going to go take it on our first test drive now. I got to run it up to the auto parts store. I'm going to get a new belt for it. The belt might be the original one. It's completely dry rotted and shot. So we're going to get a new belt and put that on, and that may be a wrap. So far the truck's running pretty good. The ride's better. We're picking it up to about 45 now and coming out of town. We'll see what happens, and then we'll just have to go from there. I can definitely tell there's a difference. Made sure the brakes were, I thought they were pumped up. I got to the end of my alley and took a little more force than it should have, so got them pumped back up. But aside from that, it's going pretty good. So we're gonna go on about a 20-mile test drive and see what happens. Well, we're home. I didn't get the belts. It's amazing you can show up with the part numbers and the meathead behind the counter still can't figure it out. So dealing with part stores, it's trials and tribulations. Anyhow, that's it for this video. I hope you liked it. There wasn't a whole lot. Brakes, suspension, we finally got it all done up. Hopefully I should have a cost of what everything cost me to do now. But like I said, this is why you do your maintenance. The problem I'm having with this is it's been deferred so long that everything's seized. So you got to break everything loose. And when I'm having a problem with getting the belts off is the fact that this was a fleet maintained vehicle for a long time. And a bunch of mechanics were probably lazy using power tools and impact wrenches where they shouldn't have. There's a lot of places where it's just not a good idea, and the alternator bolt is one of them. So we'll see if we can't crack that loose without cracking the head or breaking the bolt off in the head or whatever. So anyhow, I hope you liked it. I hope you like, share, and subscribe, and see you next video. Thanks for watching.